Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a universal mental glitch, one that causes us to sabotage our own success without even realizing it. It's this weird flaw in our thinking that affects pretty much everyone, yet almost nobody believes it affects them personally. So, let me start with a classic joke. A person is driving down the highway and a warning comes on the radio, "Attention, there is a single car driving the wrong way on the A7. Please be careful." The driver looks around at all the headlights coming toward them and thinks, just one? There are hundreds of them. That feeling right there, that everyone else is the problem, that is exactly what we're talking about today. That joke perfectly captures a question researchers have actually asked people. So, take a second and be really honest with yourself. Do you think you're more objective, more rational than the average person? Well, if you answered yes, you are in the vast majority. In one study with over 600 people, more than 85% of them believed they were less biased than the average American. And that number, that's the perfect illustration of this trap we fall into, this deep-seated feeling that bias is always someone else's problem. So this whole phenomenon actually has a name, and it's the key to understanding why, sometimes, we become our own worst enemy, undermining our own goals for reasons that just don't seem clear. Basically, it's a meta-bias, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a bias about our own biases. Think about it. We are fantastic at spotting when a friend is making a decision based on, pure emotion or some flawed idea. But when we look at our own choices, we look inward, we see our good intentions, and we conclude, nope, I'm being perfectly logical here. It's a true blind spot, because the biases that drive us are, unconscious by their very nature. And here's the crucial part. This is how the blind spot gives the perfect cover for self-sabotage. Because we're so convinced of our own rationality, we just don't see the real subconscious things driving our actions. So we might avoid a great new opportunity and tell ourselves it's just being prudent, when really, deep down, it might be a fear we can't even see. And these tendencies, they're not just random quirks. They are rooted in some really powerful psychological factors. Sure, it can be a fear of failure, but you know what? It can also be a fear of success, all the pressure and new responsibilities that come with it. And it's so often linked to imposter syndrome, that nagging feeling that you don't really deserve your accomplishments and you're about to be found out. And make no mistake, this is not a small personal issue. This one cognitive glitch can create these massive ripple effects that damage our relationships, our careers, and honestly, even our entire society. In our personal lives, the bias blind spot is just a recipe for conflict. It leads us to misjudge other people's intentions, right? We'll blame their actions on their bad character, but we judge ourselves on our good intentions. So when an argument kicks off, we immediately assume they're being emotional or biased, while we, of course, are just seeing things clearly. It creates this vicious cycle of misunderstanding that can totally wear down trust. And, professionally, the consequences can be absolutely disastrous. A lot of financial experts believe that these unrecognized biases were a key factor in the 2008 financial crisis. You had decision-makers, all convinced of their own objectivity, surrounded by other people who thought the exact same thing. They just overlooked or dismissed this mountain of evidence that contradicted their own beliefs about the market. And that collective blind spot? It led to catastrophic global results. On a societal level, this blind spot is just a powerful engine for polarization. When we can't see our own biases, we get locked into our views. We don't just disagree with people who have different perspectives, we dismiss them as being fundamentally flawed, or irrational, or biased. And that just shuts down any chance of productive conversation, erodes trust in everything, and makes finding common ground incredibly difficult. So, if we're all susceptible to this, and we can't just think our way out of it, what can we actually do? Well, the good news is that research points to a pretty clear path forward. You can think of it like building a practical toolkit for your mind. Now, the path out isn't about eliminating bias. Let's be real, that's impossible. It's about managing it. And it all starts with a little humility, just admitting that what we see as objective reality is really just our subjective take on it. From there, it's about actively seeking out other points of view, especially the ones that challenge us, and making self-reflection a regular habit. And this isn't just about passively thinking. It's about building active habits. You see the pattern here, right? The goal is to systematically challenge your own default perspective. You do that by looking for different views, by evaluating multiple possible scenarios, and by reflecting on your own thought process. It's about creating systems to catch the biases that your intuition is always going to miss. And the great thing is, you can build these into daily habits that directly fight back against self-sabotage. For instance, breaking a huge, scary goal into smaller, achievable steps makes it way less overwhelming, which lowers that fear of failure that so often triggers procrastination. And here's a really powerful technique. Actively turn the tables. Once you've made a decision, spend 5 minutes forcefully arguing against it. It's a fantastic way to spot its flaws more objectively and weaken that blind spot.
Look, at the end of the day, overcoming the bias blind spot isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing practice of intellectual humility and self-awareness. It's about accepting that, yes, sometimes we're all that ghost driver. So we'll leave you with this question to start that practice right now. What's one thing you believe with absolute certainty that might just be worth questioning today?